So we finally have the full spoilers for chapter 21 of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, and Sarada's Mangekyo ability might be the most broken one in the entire history of Naruto because he just instantly negged the Shinju known as RYU. Let's just say that we have a lot to discuss, so let's get into it. So the person on the cover for this month is Sarada, and the title is Mangekyo Sharingan. Now, as you guys know, these are just the text leaks, so we aren't getting the actual, spoiler panels until maybe a few days before the chapter comes out, so just bear in mind that this isn't the full context to what's happening. Now, it then says that the chapter starts with Sarada having a flashback. We also have a summary that says, from the depth of despair, the fairy rises to the challenge. Now, I'm not sure if this is a mistranslation, the fairy part, but this appears to be the subtext or the subtitle. It then says that Sarada's flashback is her stating that she's always focused on the important stuff and ignoring the stuff that was not. She always thought her emotions and feelings were in her way and a weakness. So this is in reference to the conversation she had with Yoda, where she told her that it's okay to save her power to protect Boruto, even though she was doing it subconsciously. So this might be a flashback to that specific moment, or maybe some other moment during the blank period. I guess we'll see. It then says Boruto's flashback with Sasuke as Sasuke explained MS to Boruto, MS of course being the Mangekyo Sharingan. Now this could be referring to the spoiler we covered 2 days ago, where Sasuke pretty much explained that Sarada didn't know that she awakened the Mangekyo, and because she awakened the Mangekyo, he trusted her fully because of course, Sasuke knows what goes into awakening that specific ability. So it could be that, or maybe Sasuke actually went in depth on how the Mangekyo works. We have no idea, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, it then says that Sarada accepts that her feelings aren't a weakness, Of course, it isn't Sarada, of course, clearly. But yeah, it then says that Sarada's power is gravity. Think Nagato, not Naruto, Mr. Nagato from Naruto, with no drawbacks. She can spam black holes all over and choose who and what will be affected or not. She can also detonate those black holes at will for massive damage if something makes contact with it. And this of course is referring to the planetary devastation that Nagato and Pain, who's also Nagato, used. So funny, like people to this day still believe that Pain was a separate character. But yeah, Nagato controlled Pain and is able to use the 6 parts ability of the Renegon. One of those abilities, is the planetary devastation, which is where Nagato created a black hole, literally a black hole, and then threw it into the sky, and it just sucked everything towards it, including the entire landmass and the person he's trying to target. Now I will say that take the person he's trying to target with a big grain of salt, because it wasn't explicitly stated that Nagato can specifically target a specific person. It just seems that the person that's in that area gets sucked up into the entire mass itself, along with the surrounding area, because of course the surrounding area is needed to encase the person. So I'm not sure if Naruto can specifically target a person. Like let's say Naruto and Sakura were standing in position, only Naruto would get sucked towards it. I don't think that's the case. Though there is the case where Sasuke used it on the 9 Biju, but in Sasuke's case, which actually goes to support the argument, Sasuke used the Biju themselves as the point of gravity, and they sucked the entire surrounding towards them. So there wasn't a black hole in that instance. So I think it does make sense that Sarada's is way better than Naruto's. It doesn't have any drawbacks. And one of those benefits is that Sarada can target specific people. It then says that Sarada does with RYU, which I think it meant to say that Sarada does it with RYU, and RYU gets blown up in seconds, and the Togedama, which I think that's how that's pronounced, appears. And Togedama, of course, is referring to the Thorn Soul Bulb. So yeah, Sarada's black hole, which is exactly what it is. Sarada has a sun Mangekyo, and we discussed this in the actual video that goes into Sarada's Mangekyo powers, and you guys will see it on screen. You guys can watch it after this one. I discussed that Sarada, yes, has a sun designed Mangekyo, but that doesn't mean she has Amaterasu, because the sun can be used to represent other things, such as, time. So it could have been an ability that allows her to manipulate time, or maybe a black hole, because of course when a sun dies it turns into a black hole. By the way, this also plays into the ability itself, because a black hole does crush things that get into it. And there have been some disagreements on this, because some believe that a black hole doesn't possess mass, so how can it crush things? But of course you have the opposite opinion, where some believe that it does possess mass, and that is how it crushes things to an infinite degree. And this of course is what happened to RYU. So Sarada's Mangekyo isn't sucking things in and teleporting it to a different location. It's sucking them in and then crushing them under the weight of the black hole. Now, what I also found very interesting is that it then says Kashinkoji seemed pleased with it, saying that Sarada's Mangekyo Sharingan is crucial for what happens next. So I have no idea what this means. Does Sarada play a significant role in defeating Jura, because if this ability just does this and crush anything that she targets, Sarada should be able to kill Jura. So maybe Jura is just stronger than a black hole and it can't kill him. Of course, this is also a very strong possibility, but I guess we'll have to see. Though it is possible that Jura has the ability to absorb ninjutsu, and that is what this is. It is created by chakra, so maybe it can be absorbed. Or it could be the case that maybe this isn't created using chakra. Maybe she's just manipulating the space itself to create the opening, which would make the black hole a byproduct of ninjutsu, but not ninjutsu itself. It'll be like Kamui from Obito, where it was able to affect Jubidara's TSO, which has the ability to negate ninjutsu, and that's because the rift in space was a byproduct of Kamui and not Kamui itself, if you guys understand what I'm saying. But yeah, Boruto then questions if there was a way to prevent Yodo from dying, which implies that Yodo has died, which is good, by the way. Rest in peace Yodo, the first character in Boruto 2 Blue Vortex to die. And I will admit that I was wrong. I thought it was gonna be Araya, and Yodo was gonna feel responsible for it, but it was Yodo. She bit the dust and there's no one to heal her. That would say that Boruto could have simply teleported to the battlefield and then, teleported her to Konoha and then had Himawari do it, because, she healed Inojin from something similar. And the reason why I say this, and I know someone's gonna say, Boruto can't enter because of Jura, but Boruto then does that. So yeah, it goes on to say here that Koji answers that Boruto coming to save the day would prevent Sarada from awakening Mangekyo, so Yodo was doomed. It then says that Boruto isn't really pleased that Koji never said anything about that. And this is important because I just mentioned that Boruto could have simply teleported her to the leaf, but the reason why Koji didn't tell him that she was going to die is because he wanted Sarada to awaken Mangekyo. This of course doesn't inform Boruto's actions of not teleporting to the battlefield and saving her, because he didn't know that. So yeah, I do think that even though Boruto is kind of questioning Koji's motives here, he still agrees with what he's saying and still understands what he's doing. But it also supports what I said maybe a few months ago, that Koji might be a problem for Boruto and he might betray him. Because of course, Boruto is operating on everything Koji tells him. He doesn't know what will happen or how it will happen, he just knows what Koji tells him is going to happen. And he has to just trust him and believe everything he says. This goes back to the entire thing with Himawari. He didn't tell Boruto that Himawari was a prime target of Jura. He didn't tell him that Himawari had the Nine Tails, because Boruto was surprised when he heard it. So of course, Kashin Koji is keeping certain info from him. Boruto is aware of that. That is why anytime we see Boruto and Kashin Koji interact, Boruto is always giving him this side eye and looking at him weirdly, because he doesn't trust him. And it's very hard to form a partnership with someone when you can't trust them and they keep lying to you or keeping information from you. So I do think this, semi-partnership, this allyship that's going on with Boruto and Kashin Koji will break down eventually, and we might see something interesting, but we'll see. Now it then says that Koji answers that Boruto coming to help would have made Jura come out of hiding, and we can't have that, since Jura can sense, see and hear whatever the other Shinju does. And this does confirm what we already theorized in the prior chapter, because Jura was able to feel what Matsuri was feeling, which is why he was crying, and he also saw exactly what was happening in the battle. This of course isn't new to Naruto, because Naruto was able to do the same thing with his paths, his 6 paths of pain. He could also see through their eyes and his power was reflected through them. So yeah, Jura pretty much knows that RYU got packed up and something interesting is about to happen. Now then says that Boruto asked him, wait, what about Konohamaru? It then says that Konohamaru is about to get killed by Matsuri for the 100th time, and Boruto uses Flying Thunder God and goes Trunks versus Frieza on Matsuri. This of course is referring to when Trunks sliced and diced Frieza into many small pieces after first appearing in the story. So it seems like here Matsuri is dead, and also that Konohamaru still couldn't defeat a half-destroyed Matsuri with no hands, which is crazy. But yeah, Konohamaru L, it was predetermined, okay, as Kashin Koji said. It then says that Kashin Koji face palms, because of course, if Boruto does this, Jura will know, and he's waiting for Boruto to appear. And it also implies this in the dialogue, because Jura then says, uh-oh, here he comes, time to get to work, no? Now of course I will say, this might be a mistranslation. He might not say this in the exact way as it's described here, but it's pretty much, in the ballpark. Now he also had some additional description of what happened between RYU and Sarada. It says that Sarada needs to see the attack coming, and she's also floating like RYU, so maybe she's targeting herself as well. Now I want you guys to take this with a big grain of salt, because I've seen multiple interpretations of this. Some people saying that Sarada has the ability to fly, and others saying that she's affected by her own jutsu. Now, of course, we have no idea which one is true, so just keep that in mind. It does seem like, she maybe has the ability to fly, since, her ability is gravity-based, so maybe that's the case. Who knows? We'll see. It then says that RYU tried to escape via using the claw mark, and his fingers are barely visible in the Shinju dimension. It then says that Jura looks at it, and, he's thinking, because it has the ... but RYU gets pinned by the portal gravity, I believe, so he can't move. So RYU pretty much tried to escape into the Ten Tails dimension, but the gravity of the black hole pinned him and sucked him in and then crushed him before he could escape. That's all this is saying here. It also then says that Sarada bleeds from her eye, which is kind of weird since she just used it, but it could be the case that, it's a lot of strain because she's using it multiple times to, to block the sand and crush it, and also to crush a Shinju level entity, so I think it does make sense. He then says that she seems to be tired from using her Mangekyo and gets unconscious. Thankfully, Mitsuki grabs her before she falls to the ground. So this does imply, and I will say, that Sarada is indeed flying, because if he grabs her before she falls to the ground, it implies that she's in the sky. I doubt Mitsuki needs to grab her before she, tumbles over from standing up. I don't think that will be much issue for Sarada. So this does imply that she's in the sky flying while using the Mangekyo ability. But of course, again, take it with a big grade of salt. By the way, I've seen some misinterpretations about this one because it says here that but someone throws a shuriken behind Matsuri's back and it's Boruto. He teleported to the battlefield thanks to one of the FTG symbols. And I've seen some people saying that someone else threw the symbol, maybe someone else is on the battlefield, but that's not the case because you have to remember that there was already one of Boruto's symbols on the battlefield. That's what they used to lure the Shinjus in. So all Boruto did was teleport to that symbol and then threw something else at Matsuri, then teleported behind her. So the person who threw it was Boruto himself. There's also a different translation as to what Jura says, because it says here that Jura says something like, "You have shown up, Otsutsuki Boruto." So yeah, that's where the chapter ends, I think. So if you get more information, I'll do a separate video for you guys. But yeah, if you guys liked watching this one, remember to drop a like and subscribe for more Boruto updates. And also watch the video on screen that explains Sarada's Mangekyo ability. But yeah, with that said, I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.